which, you know, it's old Irish great, it's old Irish, it's hard to get right now, you know. It might work. If you want to call a woman a heifer and see how we go, that's lovely, Jim. That's lovely, Jim. It might not work anymore. This is my favourite one actually. It was kind of a goddess, like, that's all they said. Love making what's happening. So there wasn't a love making that day. And out of that, a great king was born. Well, that's a different story. The last one I'll leave you with is another great hero of Irish mythology. Cú Chulainn was his name. If you remember anything from tonight, you might remember the name Cú Chulainn. Cú Chulainn had no equal. He is a brave warrior from far off, and he had so many deeds done, and his amazing ability to vanquish foes and kill people, and it was all brilliant. He had 3 problems though. He was too young, he was too daring, and he was too beautiful. All of the women fancied him, and none of the lads were happy that all of their women would swoon when he walked past. Very obviously about it too. And they said, okay, we gotta get him pitched. And so, this is a summary of the story. They found a woman who was Cú Chulainn's equal, Emer. And when they met, it was one of those like huge forces meeting another force. And everyone went quiet. 50 handmaidens kind of went quiet. The charioteer of Cú Chulainn stood still and watched as he then started playing with words and tongue twisters, and she managed to match his riddles and his rhymes. And well, they had a competition to see if they could keep track of how they spoke to each other. It makes no sense now because it's a translation from Old Irish into Australia, modern Irish into English, and so it's lost most of its meaning, which I won't bore you with. But the final bit does kind of make sense still today. Okay, and it's the one where Cú Chulainn dropped all pretense and said, "My fair maiden, I see a plain hills before me, and a man will feel very satisfied to lay his sword between them." Which I think you understand that. So again, best of luck on Zen Beach, lads. That's just, if you want some tips from me tonight. Go out, try some ancient Irish chat lines. Try the sword one. It might get you. Yeah, maybe not. Might lose your sword. Okay, we're gonna pop over to the first night of the first story of the night, and this is Daniel going to be telling you a love story. It's kind of stuff. There you go.
Thank you very much, Ellen. So we're going to stay in Ireland. In fact, we're going to stay in Ireland all night tonight. And I'm going to tell you about a couple. A couple who were lying in bed, engaged in pillow talk. We all know this, we've all been there, and we all know how friendly, light, casual conversations can sometimes suddenly turn a bit tense. And that's what happened on this particular morning. King Ailill and Queen Maeve were lying in bed, heads in pillows, chitting-chatting about this and that. And then King Ailill said something kind of weird out of the blue. And he said, "Here's something true for you. Here's a little nugget of wisdom. Here's a little knowledge bomb. A wealthy woman is a wealthy man's wife." They were a bit sexist in those days. And she said, "Well, yeah, I suppose that's true enough most of the time, generally speaking. A wealthy woman is a wealthy man's wife, but why do you say that in this particular moment?" And he said, "I say it because I'm looking at you. And you, yes, you're the High King's daughter, yes, you're the glorious, the wonderful, fierce Queen Maeve, but you were always rich, but you were never so rich as you are now that you are my wife." Yeah, we back with them well. And she said, "King Ailill, my dear, I am Queen Maeve. I am the daughter of the High King of Ireland, and of 6 sisters, I am the fairest and fiercest. I have mercenary warriors at my command, 15,000 of them, and for every 10 of those I have another 9, and for every 9 of those I have another 8, and 7, and 6, 5, 4, 3, and 2, and 1. I have gold, I have silver, I have jewels of every kind, I have cattle, I have sheep, I have pigs, I have wealth of every kind that we measure in this day, and I have you. Hello, my husband, who is a good husband, brave, loyal, generous. You're worthy of me, Hello, but you're not richer than me. I am, said Hello. So, I imagine you've probably been in this situation before. You're there with your lover and you start arguing over who's got the most money. People do that these days. And it gets to this point where you just can't settle it, so the only thing you can do is to count your wealth.
Or crypto as it is now.
Yes. Very easy these days. You go into your app, you go into your crypto, whatever you have, Bitcoin, I don't know about that stuff, and you measure. But it was a bit more complicated those days. They had to actually get all their material wealth together. So they went into the main hall, had the servants light the fires, had musicians start playing, and they got it all out. And they start counting it out. So we've got plates, we've got enameled shields, we've got cups with jewels in them, and we've got clothes of fine fabrics, and lots of other kinds of wealth you might find in ancient Ireland. What other wealth might you have lying around your house in ancient Ireland? Does anyone know? Socks. Swords, yeah. Swords and socks. Yes. What else?
Goblins.
Goblets. Very nice goblets. What else?
How about your sheep?
Sheep. We'll get there.
Oh yeah.
You're one step ahead.
I'm right.
Indoor wealth, sir.
Bagpipes?
Bagpipes, yeah. Can't get
Gillen Pipes are the bagpipes in Scotland. Yeah, great territory.
So good. So they get it all out, and they're having quite a good time. They're joking, laughing. You call that a nice cup? And eventually they set it all up. They get it all totted out, evened up, and they decide that in terms of material indoor wealth, they're about equal. So they went outside. They went outside and they spoke to the shepherds, and they had the shepherds bring their sheep and counted the flocks. And they walked among them, and it was all still quite good humoured, though getting a bit more, intense. Now that's very nice ram, that's very nice. Counted up the sheep and eventually decided that when it came to sheep, they were equal. So it's pigs now. And they get the swineherds in, and they're going about, and they're stroking, they're poking their pigs, and counting them all up. And what do you reckon? Was it decided by pigs? It was not decided by pigs. Still neck and neck. So now it's time for cows, and they have the cow herds bring all the cows from all the pastures, and they walk among the cows, and they check out the cows. Still about equal, and then the ground shakes. Everybody there shakes. All of Ireland shakes. All the world shakes. As Queen Maeve looks up into the eyes of a bull. And this bull, huge, enormous, regal it is. She's cowed. Queen Maeve, who's never cowed, is cowed by this bull. Looks down at her. Snorts at her, looks at her with big bull eyes, and she realizes she is beaten. No good. Queen Maeve does not like to be beaten, does she?
No.
So she does something about it. She goes to her Fergus, one of her serving men, and says, Fergus, where can I find a bull that's the equal of that bull? And he says, no problem, up in Ulster in the north. There is one more bull in all of Ireland that is equal of that bull. It belongs to this guy called Dara in a place called Cooley up in Ulster. And she says, right, go tell Dara, if I can have a loan of that bull for a year or so I can say it's mine, we'll say a year, then he can have a big plot of land, he can have 20 swords and 50 shields. Would you give a bull like that for all that stuff? Yeah? Fergus wasn't convinced. He said that's not going to be quite enough. People around there really value that bull. It's kind of the symbol of their place. And she says, okay then, how about this? He'll give me the loan of the bull. He can have all of that stuff. And he can have friendship of my thighs. This woman does not proudly know. She gets what she wants. And Fergus says, alright. So off he goes. And Fergus leads a team of men and they travel from Connacht, they travel to Ulster, they ask about where's Cooley is that way, they get to Cooley, where's Dara's house, they go to Dara's house and they're welcomed as a royal deputation, should be welcomed, and eventually the talk turns to serious matters and Fergus lays out Maeve's offer to Dara. And when Dara hears this, he doesn't nod his head. He doesn't shake his head. He leaps up onto the table and splattering his drink everywhere. And he goes, I will loan my bull to Queen Maeve and I will have everything she has promised me. Not into playing it cool, this guy. So it's agreed, it's arranged, and everyone's happy. Break out the ale! So the men set to drinking, and they set to eating, and do all the other good things. Yes. And it gets to being late, and they're drinking, and it gets to being later, and they're still drinking, and it gets to being very, very late, and people are peeling off, and you know how it is, it gets to the very end, the very rag dog end of the night, and there's just two of Queen Maeve's men left, and they're sat by the fireplace. And they're finishing off the very last of the very worst ale, and they're complete wrecks, you know. And one of them said, "It's worked out well, this hasn't it? It's been good. It's been good. We've come here, got a bit of an outing, and we've had loads of good food, all that. We've had loads of good drink, and we got the bull. We got the bull. He's gonna give it to me. But it's good." And his mate, you know what he says? He says, aye man, but come on. If that lad Dara hadn't agreed to give Maeve the bull, she would have taken it anyway. And what do you know? But that was the exact moment that one of Dara's early rising manservants came in through the door, heard those words. Pretty offended, goes and wakes up his master. Well, anyway. And so when everyone meets together in the morning, and Fergus speaks to Dara, and Dara says what his men had said.
Do you think Maeve could come up in here and take what she wanted from the Red Branch of Ireland? Do you think she could do what she wanted in Ulster? Get back to Connacht and out of my eyes, you slamming muck salad.
It was just the men, it wasn't me.
Get!
So he went home with his men, tails between their legs, and he reported to Queen Maeve. And when Queen Maeve's sitting on her throne, drumming her fingers on the sides, heard all this, she said, well, it's pretty clear what happened here. Dara will not give us the bull, because he believes that we would take it by force. And take it by force we shall. And so it was. The Connacht and Ulster went to war. So it was that the greatest war in Ireland's history began, the war for the brown bull of Cooley. And it all started with a bit of pillow talk. So be careful when you're lying there with your lover. Thank you.
Alright, so probably should have started, not specifically a kid's show. Definitely a kid's show. Sing it now. But you're more than welcome, of course. Storytelling. I'm going to tell you the story of Cian and Evelyn. And again, it's a bit of a preluder to an old myth. It does end with that noise. So that's just the foreshadowing. There you go. We do. Okay, so Ethlyn was one of those people of the Fuimwira, the people from undersea. The four Morians, as they're known by some, they had the power and dominion under the sea, the power to call up great monsters and control the waves. And they pillaged and they plundered Ireland for many, many years from the north. And they would set sail and take what they did not grow themselves and live on Tory Island, the island of Tory, far to the north of the island of Ireland. And it had long, sharp, jagged cliffs. Still to this day, you can see the forts and the towers. And some say on the northern tip, this is where Ethlyn lived her life. Was held captive because she was the daughter of a king, the King Balor of the evil eye, such a hideous, furious, despairing eye. Tears followed it everywhere, crying because it would destroy whatever was in his path. One look from this posthumous eye, poison would spread out from it. You're a fan of Lord of the Rings, that's where Sauron came from, but anyway. Now, Balor was the king of Fuimwira, and he learned a prophecy to say that he would not be killed. He could not be killed by anybody that was not his grandson. And so he looked at his only one daughter, thought, probably should look at her with this eye. His wife, Kathleen, the cook of tea, was very appreciative of him masking that evil eye. And they came to a compromise. Instead of killing their only child, he agreed to lock her in a tower with 50 women. She would live there and be happy and sustained and not know of a man. And so, he would never have a grandchild. This was a flawless man. Ethlyn grew up with 50 handmaids in a glass tower on the far north coast of Tory Island. The wind and rain would lash against it. It would stay sustained still, watching the weather change, patterns, morning sunrise and sunset seen over on an island, over an incredible world of water that she would watch day in and day out. And this was her world, and she could not move. She was taught the stories from the women. She was taught of womanhood. She was taught the stories of women, and no mention of a man ever to Ethlyn. This was his rule. And so whenever she got curious and asked where things came from, these stories were avoided and told maybe some seamstressing instead. That particular day. But once she grew into her womanhood, things began to change once more for Ethlyn. She had a dream of a strong being with square shoulders and long hair, but a pointed chin and hair on his face. Square, angular features, nothing like the women that were around her that cared for her. And so the women were trying to avoid describing the man that she was dreaming of as a man, and it became more and more troublesome as the days and weeks and months and years went by. And she kept on every night seeing his face, and she was beginning to fall in love with it, although she did not know what that was. And then one particularly stormy, dreadful night, the wind was lashing sideways, the waves were crashing against the cliffs. The ground itself seemed to be moving from the wind that was harrowing so hard, and the door came knock on it, and the woman, old and frail, haggard, was walking and begging for entry there with her maid servant beside her. They were left entry, although no one should be under the decree of Balor, but they allowed these two women in. It was such an awful night. You had to be kind. And Ethlyn, in her top room, her spiral staircase, stared down at these two intruders, two people from the outside she'd never seen. The old woman, she took out a beautiful harp. She began to play a music on it so soft and so soothing. Sleep emanated all around. And all the women who were around her fell into a deep slumber and sleep. And the woman that was her servant beside her was struck then suddenly by this old hag with a hazel rock, and she transformed out of her shape of a woman, and there is a man standing there with strange square features, a beard on his chin, and suddenly Evelyn felt her knees quiver, her heart begin to beat as she looked and saw the man at the front of her dreams, that face she had seen from the time she was a young woman, and now this man was walking towards her up that spiral staircase, and her heart was in her mouth, and as she walked past towards him and he walked up towards her, she fell into his arms and very little was said then. Well, they fell into each other, and he was so passionate a lover, and she held on to him for everything she could gain, every bit of breath and kiss that would sustain her, everything she had dreamt for, all of her wildest desires now in this moment falling and filling her full. A whole night of bliss went by. She did not get a wink of sleep until the early hours of the morning, when she slumbered on this man's airy chest, which she kind of liked. Or the waxing got it. When she awoke, she saw a strange flapping with the window, and she ran out to see a swan flying back south. She looked around, seeing no sign of Cian. She realised he transformed himself into a swan and knew he was gone. She was left alone once more. She did not know that he was an enemy of her father, Balor. And he had come with an idea. The idea, well, it was a seed, and it was a dream that he had that might succeed, and it surely did, because as the weeks went by and the months transpired, her belly grew, and she knew that it only takes once. But it was worth it, she thought. As she thought now she would have something to care for, something to pour her love into. A child, but she felt there may be more inside. And when she was giving birth, the scream and the terror, the anguish and the hurt and the pain, she couldn't believe. Well, it brought down the men from the Fomorian. And Balor heard his daughter screaming in childbirth. He was furious and he ran up towards her room at the top of the glass tower. And there she was, swaddling 3 babies, not 1, not 2, but 3 babies in her arms, her face aflush with joy and beauty. And Balor grabbed the babes and stormed to the tallest point of the darkest cliff, and he brought forth a whirlwind that spun around, and he called the winds, and he flung the babes down into the wailing sound of their cries and waves crashing. And he thought he would avoid this terrible death that one of these children could bring to him. He did not know. Ethan had prayed, to call, to ask for some form of help from someone, for her babes to be saved. And Manannán mac Lir, the king of the sea, the god of the ocean, he heard her call as he was riding on his steed, white over waves as if they were plain barley, and he was running so fast. He saw the babies fall, and with the silky skin that would become the skin of the first ever Selkie, the first ever creatures that could transform from human being into seal shape. He cast 2 he could not catch. With those skins that fell into the water and transformed into seals that caught the lads. Lugh, shining, bright eyes, blonde hair. And he brought him back to Ireland. And he called for Cian. Hey, Cian. Remember this? Cian was disappointed. Oh, she was nice. Yeah, that's all. And so, Cian, he raised this young boy from a love that was so brilliant for one night only, but it was only one night. And Lugh became the hero of the two-a-day, and a whole other amazing story transpired when he did one day defeat Balor, the evil eye. know it? Because Evelyn stayed watching the sunrise and sunset, away from her babes, away from her lover and kid, away and watching, and only ever hearing the story of how great and brilliant her son Lugh would be. She's still there, sons, watching. Side note, and how Daniel actually wanted me to end this story was that Lugh might actually be the predecessor for one Irish folk character you probably all know, called the Leprechaun. But that's a very, very strenuous link, and also Walt Disney covered it. And we thought we'd end on a slightly nicer note. And anyway, right, that's the first half, I think.
Aye, it is.
So quick, what? No, oh my God, no, we can't. But don't worry, we have a very long story to come back with. But I think after 2 stories, you okay? You settled in? Do you want to take a break? Should we give you an extra one?
Right. All right.
We're going to go for an extra story. We have some very dissatisfied customers. I should mention that we're taking donations. We'll have a walk after, and it's the price of a yoga. That's what we're going to go with. The price of a yoga. We usually in Ireland say, the price of a pint. You're going to say the same. The price of a yoga. Whatever that means to you.
Well, just as you were telling there, Aaron, I just had this Scottish story just pop into my head, and I was thinking, well, it kind of suits this place because it's about dreams, and this place is called Seeds of Dreams. And then you were like, oh, this isn't quite enough. So I think I should tell it. I'm perhaps stealing Aaron's thunder a bit. He's going to for that.
No, I'm here.
Oh, yeah.
What story are you saying?
Well, it's hold on. It's a happy story, but it's from Scotland.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I'm allowed to steal a happy story.
You are.
It's from Scotland. Not going to steal the thunder if they have one happy Irish story. So let me tell you this. Long ago, in the bright morning of the world, when the new gods had not yet hidden the old gods from people's eyes, on the island of Skye, the island of mists, a group of girls went out one October morning, a crisp, sharp October morning, as they had gone out picking blackberries. These sharp, little, juicy, dark berries you get there in Scotland. And the mood was good. They set out from their village, and they were walking through the fields, and they were walking over the moors, and they were laughing, and they were talking, and they were joking, and they were jesting, and they had their baskets ready to fill them with blackberries, and they were heading towards the Black Cullen Mountains. Has anyone been to Skye? Do you know the mountains I'm talking about? Okay, the epic Lord of the Rings-y mythical island in the west of Skye, west of Scotland. You have to go there. And if you did know them, you'd be thinking, hold on, they were going to go up the Black Cullens, because that's like a kind of death wish type thing. They weren't, no, they were going to go to the foothills of the Cullens. That's fine. So they made their way there, and they started to walk around, look among the grass, and pick up some berries, and to chat away and to gossip and to joke while they were doing this. But one girl among them, she was not chatting. She was not joking. She was not gossiping. For as soon as they began to look for berries, she looked for berries, and she hunted for berries. She became like a wolf, stalking its prey, intent on finding the best, the crispiest, the sharpest, the juiciest berries. And so intent was she on her search, that she thought her friends. She couldn't even hear them anymore. She wasn't aware of them. Do you ever get like that when you really focus on the task, you know? Not aware of anything else. And so she was just head down, until at some point she sort of came out of her reverie a little bit. Oh, fuck. Because, sorry. Thing is, she'd gone a bit higher up into the hills than she intended to. You know, she was just looking down, just looking for the berries, and her friends nowhere in sight, and she was among the thin grass now. She was up there, she was up among the black Cullens themselves. Now, nobody went mountaineering in those days. Nobody went up the Cullens, because you were mental if you went up there. She'd heard all kinds of stories of the giants, the evil spirits that lived up there. No way would she ever go up there. Even nowadays, people dive there all the time. Compasses do not work up there. There's something in the rocks that just sends them. So she's up there thinking, what am I going to do? This is bad. And right in that instance, the heart, the sea mist blew in, as it does there. And so it closed in around her, thick, so you could almost start to take it and mold it. She could not see a foot before her, behind her, this way or that way. So she stood there, thinking that she just wandered off into the mist, thinking maybe I'll go, she could very easily fall off some cliff or another to her death. So she just stood there, a bit like, and this was the way it was for a little while, until she began to hear spectral voices, gruff, strange sounds. She began to shake, she maybe weird herself a little bit, and then faces out of the mist, and she laughed, for she was surrounded by deer, hinds. And they gathered in around her, and they sniffed at her, and they looked at her, and they were looking at her like, what are you doing here, you know? And then, as they were doing this, they all just suddenly, it's as if they were hearing the voice of the mountain itself calling to them. And then they all started to walk off in a particular direction, leaving her there, but they were looking back at her like, are you coming? And well, I don't know about you, but would you have followed the deer in that situation?
Yeah. Of course.
Yes? Yes. You would have? You would have?
Yes.
You would have?
Yeah.
Yes, that was very considerate. You've got other options there. You seem like a very imaginative person. But she followed the deer, and they led her sure-footed up this little winding, narrow mountain path, and all she knew was that it was going up and up and up and gradually up, higher and 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 higher, until finally, in the last light of day, the mists parted, and she found herself looking down a little valley. In the very highest peaks of the Cullens, there's this valley ringed with jagged rocks, waterfalls flowing down, tumbling down among them. And there's a little meadow there, covered in herbs and wild flowers and crisscrossed with little streams. And the deer led her, and she walked through this little valley, and the sun shined down. And it was beautiful, it was magical. They came to this little cave at the end of the valley, and she looked into the cave, and the head behind went in there, and she saw, in this cave, was a little pool. A circular pool in the rock, and sitting on stone stools, staring into this pool, were an old man and an old woman. And just to clarify, I don't mean old like Iran, I mean as old as time itself. And it seemed like for all of time, they had just been sitting staring into that pool. Until the hind came up and spoke in some strange tongue to a woman. And up she got heavily, and she purpled over to the girl and said, "What business brings you here?" So the girl told her story, thank you. The girl told her story and explained what you just heard. And then she held out some libraries and said, can I stay here at night? And the old woman, she went back to the old man, came back to the girl and said, "No, you may not stay here a night. A year and a night you may stay. I am old. I need help with my work. I need help with the hinds. Work with me, learn what I do as I do, and earn your place here." To which she agreed. So the girl lived with the old man and woman in that cave. She learned to live as the old woman lived. The old woman would go out every day with a bucket, and she would take it and the wee stool and sit down, and the deer would line up, and she would milk the deer. And she'd take her bucket here and there, and she'd find flowers, herbs, and scatter them across the milk, and then they would heat it over a little fire, making this sharp Scottish cheese called crowdie. It's very nice. And then hand it to the old man. Now the old man, all day, he would be sitting in his stool, staring into that pool in which phantasmagoric shapes twisted and writhed and swirled. And when he had that bucket of that sharp, hard cheese that you can kind of shake in your hands, he would make strange shapes, kind of modern art type stuff. Until he had a full bucket of them. And then come evening, up he'd get, not a talkative fella, walk out to this rocky buttress overlooking the Western Ocean. And there, as the sun scattered gold over the mountains, he would hold up his creations. He would hold up dreams, for these people are the makers of dreams. As the sun shone down and the waves crashed against the rocks, he would hold up his dreams, one by one, and birds would come swooping down out of the sky. In his right hand, he would hold dreams of love, friendship, brotherhood, hope, and down would come eagles, and down come falcons and little wrens, and swoop them up and carry them away across the world to plant them in sleeping minds, happy sleeping minds. And in his left hand, he held dark dreams, dreams of jealousy, hatreds, deceits, and kites and crows and birds of the battlefield would come flowing down and slip them up and take them away to plant them in minds across the world. So she stayed there with these two. She slept in her little bed, stared into the fire. She'd stare into the pool night and night and night, and began to understand little by little by little, until eventually the woman said to her one day, "Well, that's a year and a night. Your time here is over." Oh, she was kind of sad about that, because she really kind of got used to them and quite enjoyed it. She felt that she was learning quite a lot, you know. But when I came to think of it, she hadn't seen her parents, she hadn't seen her friends for a while. She said, "Okay, all right, well, this has passed, all right." So she said goodbye to everyone, and the hinds led her down this little path, down, until she came to this little beach, looking out west. The sun was setting, and she hugged all the deer. She loved them very much. She said, "I really miss you. I'll try and come visit you." And she was just walking away with the deer. Crowded around her, gathered around her, like, "No, you're not going anywhere, eh?" No. And they looked out to sea, and she looked out to sea, and she saw a little speck on the horizon. It grew larger, larger, larger. It was a boat, a coracle, little round skin boat, and it was rowed by a handsome man.
Ooh.
And he rows up to shore, and he managed to get out of the coracle without making an arse of it, which is quite impressive. And he strides up the shore, and the deer part, and they bow down before him, and sees he is wearing this golden torch, which is the sign of royalty. And he says, "My lady, I have dreamed of you every night for a year and a night in the halls of my father's kingdom. And so I couldn't really bear it anymore, and I decided I had to come find you, and so I crossed the sea to find you and find out you have, and now I ask you to return with me. Come back with me and be my bride, be my queen in Tir na Nog, land of the forever young, over the sea, and teach us the meanings of dreams." You don't pass up an offer like that. Especially not in a story. There's no, "Well, let's get to know each other, see how it goes." So they got into the boat together, sailed up into the sunset, quite literally. And she's with him now in Tir na Nog, land of the forever young, island far across the ocean, full of young, beautiful people. Seems a bit familiar right now. And there she teaches them the meaning of dreams.
Oh.
Is that enough for the first half? Okay, good.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Okay, we're coming back in how long? Sorry, 10 minutes?
That's about right.
Okay, at one
Oh,
second.
you might have some.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Say hello to the internet, everybody. It's the internet.
Hello.
Hey. Okay, we're also taking a break, so yeah. Thanks, guys. Live streaming, hilarious. Okay, and I'll leave that there. Add a camera. I'll plug it into the charger.
Thank you very much, Matthias.
I need a name again. Music which we can play now.
So you're saying it's not the power,
Why? Oh, I look at my life.
apparently they Yeah, it seems like candy like stuff here. Isn't it? Almost 22 degrees.
Real color. This is a real color.
Yeah, all drop pieces, right? Drop
I was even thinking to put some super cool thing in
I
here.
put this.
Yeah, maybe put it. Oh yeah, if you want to put it there. I don't know if it's too loud. You can put it on the ground.
Yeah, maybe.
You know, if your voice is not heard.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Let me just see. I'll get the back of us.
No Fisherman's Blues. No Fisherman's Blues.
I wish I was a fisherman from the roaring sea, far away from valleys, bitter memory, casting down the truth out of them in the world. See them bearing down on me, starry sky above, out of my head, you my heart. Oh, I wish I was a brakeman, a hurtling fever train, crashing headlong into the heartland like a candle in the rain. That beating of a sweet blood, burning over cold, counting down, flashing by me, and that dance for the soul out of my head. You my all. Oh. be your fisherman, light my head, you my all. Oh, 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 oh. Light my head, you my all. Oh, yeah. Okay, so would you like to hear another story?
Yes, yes.
I knew that was going to happen. I was like, oh no, that's a terrible place to put right there.
Anyway. Okay, so we are going to tell another messed up love story. This one's shout out to the only person in here who actually has a namesake of the main character in this story. Big shout out to Simon. So this is the story of Saiv and Fionn McCool. Now, Saiv was one of those otherworldly women who was in the 3 times 50 islands of the other world. There were many. There was a time when Ireland was ruled by a fairy folk or fairies or people of the fae, as they were called. And well, they opened the door and slipped on through. They stepped through into the other world, a veil opened wide, the power they could use to simply step beside the light. And when they stepped into the light in the other world and the other way, they slipped into a place besides the one that we know today. And where they roam and where their realm is, we don't quite know, but we can sense it and we can see it, and sometimes we can almost feel it. And in these mystical islands, there are many different shapes, many different colors, many different forms. Many things are dropped. And some things are picked up in it.
He improvises this stuff.
It's all scripted. Now, in this land of brilliance and beauty and prosperity, well, there was a king and he had a beautiful daughter, and well, her name was Saiv, and everyone doted on Saiv. She had brilliant brown eyes, beautiful curling hair, and she was just love embodied, and she threw love out to everyone she could see, and she seemed to dance around merrymaking in every way. Whenever suitors came, she would simply glide beside and spin and twirl and dance and twist and hop and be merry and not really fall in any head over heels with anyone at all. And yet, many fell for her. And there was one who was a friend to the king, the Far Darragh, the great man who was a druid. He had the magic way, he had the long hazel rod, he had his seam pool, and he had, it was very long. I mentioned it was a long hazel rod.
And a sword.
Hazel rod. Not a euphemism. Say nothing about girth, I don't know, it's just long. So, he wasn't very popular with the ladies for one reason or another. I think it was because he kept on seeing prophecies and being with women who didn't agree with that prophecy. So, yeah. He had decided that this woman's side should be by his side. He, after ruling with the king and being his most trusted adversary, or advisor rather, became his greatest adversary because he decided he wanted this woman's side to be his own. And when he professed his undying love for her, she seemed to say, "Thank you. Come over here now." And simply slipped beside another lovely offering of somebody who wanted to take her away. And she decided she didn't want it. Well, he decided to profess his love even greater the next time. Real intense staring. Really emphasizing that long hazel rod. I love you. You see my hazel rod? She once more said, thank you, you're great. Okay, bye. A third time, this time he would not be refused, and so he went up to her and said, I love you so much that if anyone is to take you away and you fall for them, I will be destroyed inside. Okay. I don't quite know how to respond to this. Thank you seems like a weird answer right now. I'm going to say, don't die inside. As she went away, he struck her with the hazel rod and she transformed into a deer. And she was dragged out then, kicking and bucking. Well, she was dragged away into a place where she could not see where she was going. And she was in an enchanted forest, and suddenly a mist was all around her. She couldn't see where she was. She couldn't hear the sounds of her family and her loved ones and her friends. And suddenly she was all alone in the shape of a deer. And there was the Phangan, the dark man. And he was saying that if she wanted to be returned to her shape, she would have to give her love to him and him alone. And well, even as a deer, she could refuse this man and say no with a cold stare. But every time he tried to win her over with gifts of food and flattery, she simply grew icy and sick inside and went back away. The days trickled into weeks and then months, and she was sure somebody would come for her. Until she went towards the hearth light emanating out of the window, nice and bright one night. And there she heard a servant talking to Phangan, asking how long was he going to keep this up. For as long as it takes, she will break, he said. She will be mine, and she will be no one else's. And after all, he cackled and laughed and cajoled for the fact that there was no way that she could ever break the curse that he had placed upon her. The only way is for her to find her way into the house of Fionn McCool. And everybody knows if she in that state went anywhere near Fionn and the Fianna, they'd kill her outright for being a deer. Doesn't Fionn love hunting? Cackle, cackle, cackle. As he cackled, she stepped away, wondering could she find her way to Fionn McCool and the Fianna.
And you may be wondering at this point, who the heck is Fionn McCool?
I'll get him all right.
Allow me to furnish you with some information. Fionn McCool was the captain of the Fianna. The Fianna. Shall we say it together? Get that drilled in. Captain of the Fianna. Fianna, that's right. Who are the Fianna? The Fianna were the guardians of Ireland. Scotland too, at times. And they were men, cool young men, handsome young men, sexy young men, intelligent young men, gathered together. They sometimes grew into old men. But they were men whose job was to guard the shores of the lands they loved. So when there were invasions from men or monsters, the Fianna would be there to fight them away. And when that was done, they would go to a feasting hall and they would feast. And they would fight. And when there wasn't anyone invading, they would just make their own trouble. They had a lot of great times, the Fianna did. There's all kinds of great warriors I can tell you about. But the one I need to tell you about in this instance is Fionn McCool. Should we just try that again? Fionn McCool. Doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman or anything else. else you should be going, yeah, when you hear Phil McCool, because he was just the best, that's it. He was the greatest. He was kind, he was generous, he was fair, he was well-spoken, he was the leader of the Fianna. And people either wanted him or wanted to be him. When you're having a hard time struggling with something, you'd say, what would Fionn do? What would Fionn do?
Oh, so something.
Suck his thumb. He had a magic tooth. He could put his, magic thumb, was it a thumb tooth? It was a thumb tooth combination. He put the thumb to the tooth, and then all knowledge would be revealed. But he didn't do it too often because that kind of spoils stories.
Did he have a whistle?
Yes.
Very earthy one.
Okay, there's children here. As I was saying, he also liked hunting. The Fianna, when they weren't fighting, they loved to go out hunting. So of course, it's a good plan to say, deer, go near Fionn. Yeah. But the thing that happened is that the Fianna were out hunting one day. Fionn and a bunch of his best men, they had gone out from a big shining white glistening fort on the hill of Allen, which is kind of near Dublin. And they were out there and they're running along and their hounds were ahead of them. And then Finn heard Bran Scullin, his favourite hound, and he could tell that a deer had been caught. And so all the men were running. And then he hears a change in the sound of the hounds barking. And Fionn, being the fastest runner, is fucking Fionn. He gets there first. And what does he see but something pretty darn strange? He sees white deer, mythical white hind. But Bran and Skjold and his hounds, instead of ripping her throat up, they're guarding her from the other hounds. The other hounds are and Bran and Skjold are like, no, you do not come near her. You do not come near her. And the deer, the hind, is given Fionn this look. She's got these deep eyes. And Fionn, he's had a fair bit of women batting their eyes and looking deep in his eyes, over the years. But these eyes. Another man arrived, and he's like, just back off. He knows he is in the presence of the other world. And he knows that, this is not a deer that you kill. And he thinks, well, in that case, best to just leave this deer to it. And we'll be on our way, grateful to have been a moment in the presence of the other world. On we go, lads. On we go. And so off they go, and then he sees the deer following him. A deer following the Fianna. So home they go. The deer still following. They go into the hill of Allen, and they walk around the fort, and they're talking. Everyone's coming to look at this deer who's just kind of walks gracefully in. Is that good, graceful deer walking? Something like this.
I'll show you a graceful deer walking.
Go on then.
That's
Okay. And so eventually everyone's kind of done looking at this strange deer that's just wandering around. So they go off, they eat and they drink, and they all go to bed. And Fionn is lying in bed, his fire burning in the corner, and he's lying there. And he wakes up at some point in the night. And the door
A silhouetted shape, a female figure that Fionn had not really remembered being there before. And the figure walked towards him. And as the room illuminated with the light, he saw those big, bright, brown eyes he'd seen in that white beard. Her skin so pale, her curling hair around her very unclothed body that he was very hard struggling not to look at, just occasional contact with the audience. Everything he could literally do is not look down, and he managed it somehow. But she was so thrilled to be back in her body. She was so grateful to have not been killed, although she had taken the risk. But now to be back in her own form, she told Fionn by the hearth and the fire was flickering bright her story of how the Fardara had taken her away and trapped her against her will, and how she'd been transformed to the deer shape. And Fionn couldn't help but ask her about the 3 times 50 and many islands of the other world, and those beings that danced and played and sang. All night she told him about the bright world just beyond the veil, and the magic of the ever-living folk, and where you can step in between magic and destruction, and that thin line of joy in between misery. And it's so perfect in a glimpse and so destroying in another. And as he asked her questions, he found him telling her stories about how he was a child burning his thumb on the salmon of knowledge. He realized he was trying to impress her, but it was a really impressive story. And how he became the leader of the Phangan, a great band of warriors. And she was intrigued. She was definitely interested. She was asking questions. He thought she might be laughing on her own account. And well, the sun rose, and well, he decided he'd better make her some food. But she followed him in, and he prepared her food. And they kept talking, eyes locked, gazing at each other constantly. And questions were pouring for 3 days and 3 nights. They seemed to be in this tangle of wordplay and conversation, not leaning in and touching, but simply being in their presence. And she was so grateful for this man to be giving her all of his attention and not asking for more, not demanding more, not being physical with her. And she was able to be comfortable around him until she wanted a bit more. She did. And when she made her mind up, well, Fionn was helpless to resist. And all too eager, I have to say. But 3 days and 3 nights was not even remotely in their hemisphere at the moment, because time stopped existing as they fell in between sweatiness and sleep and grogginess, and well, they were just about keeping themselves fed at this stage and water in between. Every now and again they thought maybe we should have a bath. And you're going, I'm going. So they were really enjoying each other's company, and they had never been funnier. And they had never been more received in their jokes, and everything they said was golden honey to the other listener. And it just seemed like time had evaporated, and so much of this entanglement could just keep on going. And Fionn realized he didn't care about anything else. This was all his world now, and it would just be this way.
And no, it wouldn't. You're living their experience. But there are other people in the world, my dear. There are a lot of men called the Phangan, you remember them?
This part.
And they were not happy about it. Have you ever been the other person in this situation? You ever been the friend who's watching these two? Fionn had been the leader, the one everyone gathered around. First in the sword yard in the morning, leading the hunt, leading them into battle, charge! And now he was this moony-eyed moron. Now you say goodbye. And they just sat there in the feasting hall. Tell us that story about that battle. We killed all the people, and then there were those women afterwards. No, as I was saying. And it was awful, it was disgusting, it was excruciating. And they just had to get on with life without Fionn, which is fine. Life without Fionn is fine, I suppose.
It's not.
But not when you've not. Not when you've known him, not when he's been your leader and he's just right over there being a tit, and it's just, oh, you can stand it. And what's worse is the Fomorians caught wind of this. The Fomorians, the dark phantoms that lived over the sea and that lived under the sea, the gruesome creatures with monstrous body parts. And their druids divined that there was a weakness in the Fianna. They divined that there was a weakness in Fionn. And so they went to the Fomorian kings and told them this. And the Fomorian kings gathered together and forged an alliance. And so the war drums beat and ships rose up out of the sea with masks of human skin, skeletons, flayed men hanging from them, and the Fomorians rowed and rowed and rowed for Ireland, knowing that Ireland was weak. And so of course, people heard about this, the druids divined it, and so news went out and war horns were blown and Fianna from all across Ireland. They answered the call, they went to the bay where the spear tip would strike, and the Fianna at the hill of Allen where Fionn was based, they're all getting the weapons, getting all together, getting ready, getting the armour on, and Culture came to Fionn's door, knock, 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 come on Fionn! Come on Fionn! Good. Eventually, after quite a long while, door opens. There's Finn in his bathrobe. What? Battle. There's a battle, great big battle with the Fomorians. Are you not coming? No, I'm gonna sit this one out. Actually, yeah, you'll do a great job. You're in charge. You're amazing. You're my guy. You're my guy. And no, you're our leader. You're Fionn. You're the captain. Is he seeming a bit less sexy now? I hope so, because this isn't on, is it? And he says, no, I'm not coming. We've got a lady here. We're busy. And that's when Kilcha said, your father would be ashamed of you. And Fionn heard that, and he was ready to strike him, but he just saw Kilcha's eyes that it was true. Kilcha had served his father, been his friend. And, that caught him, that got him, that pierced the clouds. And so, Dorpos comes back dressed for war. And so, Finn leads the Fianna, and they travel, and they run across the country, and they get to the hilltop overlooking the battle, and the battle has been done. Fomorian ships darken the sea all the way to the horizon. There's fierce bloody fighting already there, and Fionn blows the door, and Fianna blows the horn, 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're not doing that together. Fomorians fall in their hundreds and their thousands in front of them. It is dark, bloody work, but when the day is done, the Fomorians are vanquished, the sea is red with blood, and it's time for the post-battle stuff, the not fun stuff. For many, Fianna have died, and there's the making of great funeral pyres, the burning of bodies, the singing of songs, the toasting of fallen comrades. And as everyone is doing all this and the stars are shining overhead, Fionn is getting his bag packed and getting ready to go. And Culture comes over and goes, you're not leaving. He's like, the battle's done. I need to get back to my woman. I said, no, you're a leader. You're staying here, man. No, I'm not. Doesn't he say anything this time? He looks in his eyes. And in those eyes, Fionn sees the light of great pyres in which his men burn. So he does the right thing, walks amongst his men, dispensing praise, singing songs, being one of them, being the leader. And when, a few days later, it's finally time to move on, jogged back across the country to the hill of Allen. Can't wait to see her, and the gates are open. And she is not standing where you'd expect her to be standing on the battlements. And he comes in, and none of the serving folk will meet his eye. What's going on here? What the hell's going on? Where's my wife? He goes to an old serving man who served his father, someone he trusts. And from this man, he got the truth.
So while Fionn had gone away, Saive was quite happy to see Bran and Skiolan, who she adored, the great hounds of Phangan, who she had built up quite a relationship with, because they were very smart dogs. they mind Fionn, and she kind of talked to them as if to make sure they were safe with Fionn, and Fionn be guarded. She spent 3 days then realizing that without Fionn next to her, her face was flushing. She was a bit queasy in the morning, and she didn't bleed at the time that she thought she might have to. She realized she was with child. And where she was in the hill of Allen, overlooking the four corners of Ireland, with the leader of the Phangan as the husband and father of this child, she was so delighted with how she could now have this nest to bring a child into the world. And well, it wasn't long after that she heard Bran and Skjolan playing the barking of those brilliant hounds. And she looked outside, and walking towards the hill of Allen, she could see the unmistakable shape of Fionn McCool with his long, fair hair. Fionn means fair, and a great hazel shield by his side, his huge sword, not a euphemism, but also by his side, and 2 great hounds. And as she saw them, she ran towards him to tell him her news, because she knew he didn't know. And as she got closer, she recognized dark eyes underneath this shape. And suddenly a mist fell all around her, and that long hazel rod was brought out where that sword had been, and the image of Fionn McCool disappeared and fell off the far darag as the 2 great hounds changed to great serpents that slithered around the floor and wrapped side up and dragged her down. As if they were hounds barking and snarling, they hissed and snapped, and then he struck aside with the hazel rod, transforming her once more into a white doe. And in this form, he dragged her, he threw her, cutting a veil through this world and the next, and throwing her into the other world. And when she was there in this place of mist and tall trees, in a place of valley where she could not see a trace of where she was before, she only had thoughts for Fionn McCool, and could he ever find her in this world, because she could not access the power she needed to escape from here in this dark, misty place. And always her thoughts revolved around her one and only Fionn McCool.
When he discovered what had happened, and the man who'd seen all this, well, of course, he went into a dark place. Crows of grief tore at his heart. And for a while, he simply locked himself away. He would not see anyone, would not speak to anyone. But then one day he emerged, haggard, looking older than he did before. And he just left. Bran and Skjolan trotting at his side, he left the hill of Allen, and he set off, simply to search for her. Search for her he did, across all of Ireland, from Munster to Ulster, every corner of the land, south, west, east, north. He went to herdsmen's huts, he went to king's halls. He went everywhere, and he stayed in the houses of poor folk who found the great Fionn McCool sitting weeping at their table and then sleeping before their fire some nights. And they say there was not a blade of grass in Ireland that he did not step upon 7 times, not a rock that he did not step upon 7 times, as he searched Ireland for scythe. Many nights he lay sleeping in the woods, cold and shivering, with Bran and Skjolan curled up before him and behind him, them that kept him going. He searched, and he searched, and he searched. For 7 long years he searched. And it was a painful time. Eventually, it was a time with some healing in it. For all that time, out there in his beloved Ireland, in the deep forest's tangled embrace, bathed in stormlight, sitting on mountain tops at night, did begin to remember that his love was not just for Scythe. His heart was not only for her. It was for his men, it was for his beloved hounds, it was for the forests, it was for the mountains, it was for every lonely shore, for every dark cloud, every man in his little house, every stranger on the road, every woman who gave him a kind deed, a kind smile, and wished him well on his way. Still he searched for 7 years.
Time moves differently in the other world. We don't quite know how long it was that Scythe was trapped in this valley. What we do know is that she was transformed back into her human form for a time until the Phangan saw her belly growing and realised she was with child, and still he would cajole and ask and beg and plead for her to love him. But when he spied and realised that she was with child of another man, he was disgusted and left her in the valley of darkness for months on end. She sustained herself, foraging and picking and hunting in wild places, but still she could not get out, and she managed to bring this child to term and give birth. And when she did on her own survive this task, she knew she was strong enough to bring this child to be alive and survive, and she was strong enough to survive whatever may come her way. And so finding that strength inside of her, she looked at this beautiful child she brought. It was the son of Phangan and her, with big round eyes, just like the eyes of a little deer. She called him her little deer. And for once she had company, and she told him the stories of the Phangan. She told him the stories of Fionn, how she was a great runner, how she ran so fast from this world into the next, and one day she'd find a gap, a space, a slit that she would bring them out through and into the land of Ireland. She knew she would be able to do it. She just hadn't found that bit of magic yet. And so as the child grew, the passing of time, the Phangan would visit every now and again, and oftentimes he would be merry, and oftentimes he would bring gifts. He would lavish her with music, adornments, jewellery, gowns. And other times he would be furious and angry and despondent. And he'd strike her when he left those times and transform her back into the shape of a deer. And one time it got so bad that he struck her and forced her to always remain as that deer. Never, no cure would she get. But he struck her so hard he would never be able to bring her back to the shape of a woman. And so she knew her ability to get back to the other world in Ireland was gone now. But she picked up her son with everything in her, with every might that she had. Every bit of magic that was in the bottom of her toes, the top of her head, she reached for, and she sought for a slit through, and she managed to get a gap between the other world and that, just large enough to push her only child through. With all of her wisdom and love, she managed to let that child into the land of Ireland, stepping back to her fate, to stay and remain lost in the other world.
And so Fionna's heart had healed. It's not to say he moved on. It's not to say he didn't love her anymore. There was a place that would always hurt. A place that would always long for her. He'd make peace with that. That was the man who was out hunting one day, as the Fianna so often did, when he heard barking of the hounds that signalled prey had been caught, and he went dashing forward faster than the other men. And once again, his eyes alighted on a strange sight. For it was not a deer or a boar or some other beast that had been cornered in the green wood, but a boy, a little boy, no clothes on, was stolen, protected this boy from the other hounds that had gathered around, kept him away. And the boy, he didn't seem the least bit bothered by all this. He was kind of laughing. He seems quite amused by the whole thing. But Fionn looked to the boy, and something deep inside of him knew something. This part of him didn't quite know it yet. But he picked up that boy, took him home, brought him back to the Hill of Allen, and kind of let him loose. And so the boy kind of wandered around, just playing with things and sort of wandering around. And he seemed to all find it all very amusing and interesting. And he didn't seem to know how to speak. He just spoke these kind of grunts and whistles and purrs and whines. And he didn't seem to know how to use a knife and fork or do any other kind of normal human things. But he picked things up and he began to speak. He began to do the things that people did around there in that time. Until eventually, late one night, in Fionn's lap, by the fire in Fionn's chamber, he told Fionn a story. And it was the story he just heard there, from a different perspective, of course, as he told of how he's been raised by his mother, a deer, in the other world. And so it was, in that hour, Fionn learned the truth that his heart already knew. This boy was his son. And that great love that he had felt and still felt for Scythe, it was but a raindrop compared to the ocean of love he felt for this boy. This boy, whose name is still well known in Ireland, called Oisin, which means I've told here.
Some say she's still out in misty land, Scythe in the white doe form, wisping away between three dimensions. If you ever do see a white deer, ask her if her name is Scythe. She might smile at you. So that's the end of that story. Another classically tragic, I think it's called a tragic story. Romantic Ireland, dead and gone. So we said we might not want to end the night on a complete down note, because that's kind of hard. So we do have one other story, if you'd like to listen to it, i.e. full to capacity, or would you like to hear one last story?
Yes, please.
One for the road.
One for the road.
Happy one.
It is a happy one. It's the one happy one. He told the Scottish one. This is the one Irish one. Well, it's all about how you end these things. It's all about how you end. And they lived happily ever after for a certain amount of time before they died. Okay, so this is called The Dream of Angus Og, and it is it's a short one. So Angus Og was the god of love. Well, known as the god. And thanks for coming. You want to don't put some donations in the bottom for you? Everyone's looking at you so they know how much you put in. Oh, I actually mentioned the donations box is over there. Did I mention the donations box? Yeah. No? Okay. You all see it. It's like really obviously there for the
We suggested that you maybe give them a paper yoga class.
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah. All the brilliant music and stories. Okay. So, I mentioned before that Ireland used to have a race of people known as the Tua de Danann, the people of the goddess Phangan. And these were beautiful people, pale of skin. They learned magic in the three magical islands of the north, filled with ice, Moria, Scoria, Phangan, Philias. And they ruled Ireland for a time. And this story takes place in that time. The hills were slightly different shape back then. There wasn't quite as many rocks falling onto the beaches, but at this time, the Dagda, the good god, the happy god, the jovial one, well, he had fathered a child with a beautiful woman of the Tuatha, known his wife. And Boan was her name, and Boan and Dagda, they only had one day to spend with each other. And so the Dagda made sure that the sun stayed in the sky for a year, so that their day would last an entire year. And in that time, the love was so full for them both that she gave birth to a child of such beauty and radiance and love that he was known as the god of love from that day onwards. The god born and conceived in the one day, Angus Og. Everybody loved him, everybody fell in love with him, and love spread out from him like wildfire. And he was only delighted to see desire in people's eyes. And he would play around and never really feel that pull, that tug, that yearning and that lusting and longing for someone, because there was always somebody there. You'd always get a cuddle. If you really needed. And, well, he went to bed one night and the door slid open. Anyway, one time the door doesn't open. And into the room, a beautiful woman walked, wearing a white gown and a golden chain around her throat. And the noise of the door opened. And she pulled a harp out of seemingly nowhere, such pale skin and really bright green eyes. And she started playing music. And Angus couldn't tell, was he awake or asleep, or anyway, he reached forward and asked her name, and in that moment she vanished and disappeared. But he regretted moving and towards her and talking, and the following day he was scratching his head wondering what had that happened at all. And so he was eager to get back to bed, and sure enough, when he lay down and fell back into a deep sleep, the door once more opened wide, and there was a beautiful woman once more walking with a white gown and playing the soft music. And this time he learned some restraint. And he spoke not a word, he moved not an inch, he grasped not at all, he simply stayed and watched and let her close the door herself. And as she played music, he was enthralled by her every movement, and the music seemed to open his heart, and he realized now he might be falling for this nameless beauty. And so much so that the following day he kind of didn't really talk to people. He was somewhat polite, but he just wanted to kind of go back to bed and have a sleep and wait for this woman to come back. And sure enough, the following night she did, and he was beginning to wish his days away so he could just spend all of his time in the presence of this woman who was moving so gracefully around him and filling him with something he had not really ever felt before. And so he spent a year and a day with this, not talking to people, not showing the love and the fun and the jovial side. He was simply keeping that all for when he would look upon this beautiful woman. And then she stopped coming into his room. And he was sleepless. He was shocked. The second night and the third night she didn't come. He stayed in bed. He was sure she would come, but she not once would open that door. And so a week went by, and he was growing weak and sick. And so the Dagda, his father, and Boan, his mother, came and worried after the son. Was he sick? No, the great healer said he's sick of heart. Months went by like this, almost a year now, and he still would not get out of his bed for the longing he had for this woman. And all he could do was describe with weakened words the description of her pale skin, her emerald eyes, her long flowing blonde hair, the golden chain around her throat, and the long flowing white gowns. And they said, that could be anybody. But gradually they figured out between the Dog asking certain people in Darragh in the south, a wily king who knew just who this woman was. And when he sent message to Angus that she was a woman named Care, a woman who had taken the power away from the men who wanted to seduce her and transformed herself into the shape of a swan, to be in this shape and locked fast only to the lake of the Dragon Mouth in the southwest of Ireland. Lugh Dragoon it's called. Not only to remain there in the shape of a woman for 1 year, and the following year she would transform as a swan and be all over Ireland in the shape of a swan. This was her choice. And only one who could meet her at Lugh Dragoon could ever get close to her. And so it was coming up on the year and the day, and so, well, Angus Og ran and he talked to the druids, he talked to the wisest people, how to break that spell, how to overcome it, to gather the herbs, to gather the ointments, to get the jewels, excellent, everything that he needed. And so he talked and understood exactly what he needed to do. The wisest druids had told him the only way. And now he went down to Lugh Dragoon, and a whole garrison went with him. And when they arrived, they saw 3 times 50 swans flying beautifully, wings spread fast and long, and one leading the way with a golden chain around her throat. He recognized this must be Care. And as she lighted on the lovely lake, all the swans landed beside. They transformed into their human form. And Care walked forward. Angus walked towards her. Now they actually met for the very first time, and Angus was getting a little bit butterflies in his belly. Didn't know quite what to say. And when he got to Care, she said, "It's about fucking time." Been singing at you for about a year. Tick or what? Or something like that, I'm not quite sure. Old Irish. Well, Angus leaned in and he pressed his cheek next to her cheek. They began to whisper and speak. The sound, the spell, he was planting. A shiver went down her spine as she smiled and dropped her hands and allowed him to speak the words that she recognized, because she had the power of those druids that he had gone and gathered. And now as he began to spread the ointment and the herbs along the water, a light began to flicker along the waves that began to shimmer and crash upon their feet, and now their legs, and the water rose up, and the women, all 3 times 50 of them, walked away from Care, and those that were standing staring straight at Care and Angus were blinded by a great light, until then they saw 2 swans rising and rising and flying together over Lugh Dragoon, forever to remain in this shape. It's a happy ending as long as animals are involved. People that mess it up. That's the only one. That's the one happy one, yes. Together forever as swans until they die. But they were magic people, so they're over there in 3 times 50 islands. All right, Daniel, you happy with that?
I'm very happy with that. I
Yeah.
had a lovely evening. Did you?
Oh, fine. Lovely evening.
How about you, Matthias?
Was very amazing.
Very amazing music playing. Thank you, Matthias.
Let's have it for Matthias. How about you lot? Did you enjoy yourselves?
Yeah.
How do you
Remember it all, and it's just so many details.
Yeah. You have to be brought up in the land of shy talkers. I think is a pretty good way to put that one.
Makes it up on the spot.
There's a lot of details to remember, and it's what you've been doing for how long?
14 years.
14 years. In and around. I think we started kind of tales 9 years ago. I'm a performer and actor as well as trade, so first I know research over it. So
Kind of, yeah. The thing is, it's not like it takes years to learn. You learn this from the very beginning, because the thing is, I'm sure you could tell me about a bit of gossip about something that happened yesterday or last week, or you could tell me the plot of your favorite film. There's this guy meets this girl, da 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 da. So you just know the plot. Then this happens, that happens, and then you just make up the words as you go along, just as we do when we're sitting chatting to each other in a cafe.
you get better at letting the words that fall out of your face make sense.
Let the words that follow your face make sense.
Yeah. They don't always make sense. Sometimes like, what did I just say? But then you have to like wrap it back into something.
What did I
So
just
does the
say?
story, is the story always the same, or do you change it?
Never the same. That's the beauty of storytelling. I think like when you're as an actor and a performer, as like acting on stage or script, like when it's definitely that. There's a little bit of improvising allowed. There's a little bit of play, but usually it's very stuck fast. This is how it is, and a play might change every night. It might be a different energy, but stories are organic, and you can only practice them so much. You can only go over the beats of it and see what's the audience going to bring to it, what's the feeling of the room going to be. You don't really know that, and that's why it's a very collaborative process, and it's a lovely one because we don't know how long the story will be either. It might be. I thought we'd waffle way more in the first half.
One more.
One more, Jim. One more, Jim.
But that's what makes it so magic, is that collaborative thing. It's the fact that you're kind of receiving or making it up to an extent in the moment, and then you as audience, you get that and you feel it because it's happening now. It's not a recital of something that happened elsewhere. It's in the room right now, and everyone who's in the room is contributing to it, and the story is contributing, and the players and musicians are contributing to it. So it's this incredibly co-creative thing.
So we're allowed to make noises and sounds in response to what you're
100%.
saying.
It's horrible if you don't.
Oh, it's awful. It's actually, I was saying, I missed the Irish gang here at the start because I was like, oh, it's a really silent room at the start. You don't know how to react. You're just sitting there really passive. It's not a passive experience. And that's the kind of thing of you're there, you're oh yeah, and I'll show you what a deer looks like. That's great. It's all, they become the more memorable bits in the night, so yeah.
Are you used to telling the stories more in Irish pubs where everyone's had a few drinks than, a bit more verbal?
It's definitely how I started off. But since then we've done lots of festivals, or we were in kind of hotel rooms and lobbies, and the place, the environment is key. Everyone after drinking chocolate and just sitting down and being very open. It's just a lovely kind of atmosphere, and the fact that we don't have to have microphones makes a big difference, and it's just more relaxed. But if there's a few drinks taken, it becomes way filthier, and it's already pretty filthy, and way more of kind of a jokey thing.
Raucous.
Yeah, but it just depends. What's in the room. But anyway.
I kind of cut my teeth in schools.
What's in the room. But anyway.
I kind of cut my teeth in schools. I've done loads and loads and loads of schools, which is kind of the same thing. So much imagination and so much energy and so much desire to be involved. So it's a kind of similar thing, but a bit cleaner. And I love it because they just bring so much wildness to the story.
Yeah. I could tell you one last story actually.
Uh-oh.
Alright, and this is for, what's your name? What's your name?
Arvan.
Arvan. Dan. Okay, I'm Dan. Okay, so we're going to tell a story. You're going to help me out, okay? Okay, so I'm pretty sure you've heard this one before, okay? Hang on, let me get it right. So once upon a... Once upon a... You know this.
Time.
Thank you. Okay, so once upon a time, there was you You can also help.
Big
Mountain.
There was a mountain. Once upon a time, there was a mountain. Okay. Now it was covered in these strange, purple,
Elegant, beautiful flowers.
elegant, beautiful flowers. These elegant, beautiful flowers all over, and people traveled from miles around to get these elegant, beautiful flowers from this amazing
But
mountain.
each time they tried, they couldn't.
Because of amazing
But
mountain.
each time they tried, they couldn't.
Because of course they couldn't. You don't tell them the end of the story yet. We're not there yet, okay? We're getting there, okay? But okay. First of all, we tell them why it was so important to get to the beautiful, elegant flowers. Because, well, the cure for that awful what's it called?
choking, vomiting.
Vomiting disease. Choking, vomiting, and hairballs.
Hairballs.
Choking, vomiting, death-destroying hairballs. Infesting everybody. If you breathed in one of these hairballs, you would surely die. Unless, of course, you went to the far-off great mountain with the purple, beautiful, elegant flowers and picked one of the leaves from these purple, beautiful, elegant flowers and stewed them in
Broth.
a huge broth.
Cauldron.
In a massive cauldron. Fire raging. And stirred it thrice.
But they couldn't.
But, of course, they couldn't! Because
There was a dragon.
a dragon! There's always a dragon. That fearsome dragon! And everybody was coughing hairballs. And those people who were immune to the hairballs, when they were sent, but the dragon was just eating them like, eating them up. The dragon, well, so they didn't know what to do, so they sent one, the only one girl who didn't have a hairball stuck in her throat and wasn't afraid of the dragon. And she figured out.
But nobody knew why the dragon did that. The dragon was actually doing it for good, because if they picked those leaves, if they picked one of the leaves, even just one tiny petal,
Their hand would fall off! So of course the dragon was not actually eating any of them. He was simply picking them up and swallowing them and placing them into an antechamber, which he was keeping them safe. Shut up, guys, I'm saving you. Stop trying to lose your hands. And every time someone would go for one of the purple, beautiful, elegant flowers, he would swallow them and stick them inside his little pouch stomach. And finally, one of the girl who came up to the dragon and realized that this dragon was actually a nice dragon, she said, "Please, dragon, don't eat me. Can you help me pick the beautiful, elegant purple flowers that grow on the mountain?"
but they couldn't. Actually,
Oh, we're going to have to get the end, so we will. This is where we figure out the story. So, what she said to the dragon was, "Can you please help me?" What did the dragon say?
no.
Not unless you give me some jewels. Because dragons like jewels, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. And luckily, the girl, well, she had a sapphire in her pocket.
But the dragon didn't want the sapphire.
I don't want that sapphire.
The dragon wanted
The big green emerald.
the giant, ginormous heart ruby.
Heart! And so, the little girl sped off to the great ruby place. She dove into the middle of the volcano. She grabbed the ruby. She ran back towards the dragon. She threw it in his face. He coughed up all the people and said, "Okay, fine, I'll take ruby. Here's all the flowers from the elegant purple flowing things. And don't drink any of the hairballs, you'll die." And I was like, "Thank you so much, we're going to pick with it." They picked them up, made it into a great cauldron. They drank from it. And they were all healed. And they lived.
Happy
forgot the theme for that story.
It was a heart reveal.
It's a heart movie.
Heart reveal.
And love won the day.
Valentine's night.
Thank you.
Heart reveal.
Yeah, probably should have put
Got
that
the
in.
thread, got the
Yeah, we're
thread.
good.
Another one.
Yeah, I think that's about enough for today.
All right, guys, thank you so very much.
Wait a second. Just gonna do a little bit of promotional stuff, remember?
Oh, yeah.
All that stuff. I'll do my bit first. So I have a podcast called House of Legends. For me and other storytellers tell stories, kind of like what you've been hearing now. We're going to get Aaron on it soon. And I also have various books, collections of myths and legends. The story of Finn inside is in one of them called Finn and the Fianna. It's a big epic collection of Fianna tales. So you can get that. There's Scottish myths and legends. There's an epic fantasy series called the Orkney Cycle, set in ancient Scotland. So if you're interested in any of this, just look up houseoflegends.me, houseoflegends.me, or just put Scottish myths and legends into Amazon and my book will come up, and you can check out all this stuff. If you want to train as a storyteller online, I have a year-long Celtic storytelling apprenticeship where we meet throughout the year, and I'll take you from being a complete beginner or wherever you're at to being a confident storyteller. Quite a few people have got professional quit their jobs after doing this course, so check it out if you fancy doing it. Aaron has loads of great stuff too.
Hey! I want to do. I'm redesigning my website at the moment. So, Candlelit Tales is the name of my group that I run at home. I've got a couple of requests here to see if we can do a workshop. I'm looking for a venue, and before the end of the month, I'm going to set up a 2-day workshop. If you're interested in learning about the art of storytelling, how to get a bit better at putting narratives together, public speaking, raising confidence, getting your voice, finding a story to tell, pop your name down here and I'll
And
let
don't
you
forget
know.
the funny stories. The funny stories are the best.
Lots of funny stories. So I'll be doing a workshop here before the end of the month. Also, we're going to be doing a show with these guys on the 26th in Labracadabra, which is going to be awesome. Lots of fire spinning and shows, and you should come and check that out. And yeah, check out our podcast, Candlelit Tales. It's on all podcast places.
Yeah.
Oh, do we have a donation?
Can we pay you for your
Can we donate for your storytelling?
That's-
getting a tip bucket?
You know what? I think it's.
Where do we
hold on.
give you money?
Oh, yeah, okay. That's in here.
yoga money on you.
Yeah, yoga money goes in anyways. It's good karma. It's good karma. Thank you. Drinking money, yoga money, whatever. Okay, I'll just spend it. As long as it's money. All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Katya, for hosting us.
That's really good, guys.
What did you get?
Lots of stories.
Get lost really quickly. Yeah. Alistair gets it. You just don't use it.
But then it's kind of
I'm sure there's a way to balance both without losing it.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a way to balance both because it is very true when you are transported because of that. Yeah, but if you know that you might need to articulate a little bit more and for the scholar, oh my god, yes. Then everybody.
It's
Yeah, for sure. And then because of that, I don't know.
I wasn't the course
I don't understand the music either. I really didn't forgive the music because it was the one yeah, but I would use it a lot of it. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I'm used to hearing
Southern guys in the mist, whether it's sand or whatever, you need to keep your heart so as you walk
Find a way that you anchor.
an anchor thing.
Yes.
Yeah, and then people who play that.
It's quite complicated. They are complicated.
Very colloquial style as well.
That's why it's like you really need to get.
He's not finished yet. Get on the plane.
You really need to
Finished yet.
No,
He's not finished. No, it's for you.
Yeah, but you can do something else when she finishes. Okay. You have a lot of things to do. She will finish. You can do something else.
You need to clean the dishes, yeah? Yes. All right, we got it. You can't eat standing up. It's weird.
But yeah, because they're so complicated. When you want to be, and if you are in the same place where everybody speaks the same language, then you can expect maybe people to follow the complicated story more. But if it's like such a crowd of different origins, and different language speakers, you want to make sure like you keep the script like like you can even make these little things like remember what guys when I said to you that these guys were happening, remember that?
Remember the druid.
Remember this?
Remember the evil druid
And you
with the
actually
star.
look for the
Actually,
family.
they didn't do that last week and a little bit.
A little bit.
I didn't know that. Remember the evil druid with the
You
star.
can pull more that I really want you guys to follow me through because this is important.
Yeah.
You know, I want you to follow because it's an important story. It might change your life.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any questions?
Yeah. No, I can see your point.
And you can make it even more,
Yeah, you look pretty good, yeah.
more
Engaging.
yes. Right, well, let's go. Well, thanks for the dessert. That was lovely.
Pleasure.
That was so nice.
Pleasure. See you another time. Come out the house a bit more often. What's it that you...
Well, I get out of the house and there's like different
something different happening.
otherwise it's too much spiritual. I'm a super spiritual person, don't get me wrong.
It's too cute, like too perfect, kind of not like...
It's too perfect, too
superiority sort of thing. Yeah, that's not
not my,
you'll see.
I'm full of bullshit.
How long have you been here, or how many times have you, are you like permanent, or are you coming back and forth?
At first I started coming back and forth like 10 years ago, and then I decided to stop traveling 3 years ago, and then I decided to stay.
First of all, what's your name?
Miriam.
Chio, no? I know, I'm sorry, it's a spiritual name.
Chio, no.
Yeah, she's spiritually so.
Is it Chio, no? Is it yes or no? Chio, no?
Yeah.
Chio, no.
Chio, no.
Yeah, you can choose. Chi or no. You know, let's choose. Chi or no.
So, I'm back in bed. Miriam, 10 to 12 years.
I know I might have to ask you again.
No, I'll put it just because it's alright. It's harder now. Yeah.
Oh gosh, we
Can I
can't.
interrupt a second?
Is it still recording?
Is it?
Oh, maybe we'll heard all our conversation in here. That's interesting.
Oh my god, no!
Shall I press
so
stop?
much
Yeah,
in
you should press
trouble.
stop now.
We are so
How do you
in
work
trouble.
this?
We are so in trouble.
No.
No one's watching, by
That's
the way.
very interesting. Yes.
I don't know what. No, it's not. I don't know what to
We're really
press.
sorry
I
about
don't
what
know.
Miriam said. She
Yeah,
didn't mean
we
it.
did a lot of. No, there's nothing wrong. Oh, it's still recording. No, we said from Lugh.
Listen, I just want to say
Oh,
thank you
blah,
so much.
blah, blah.
I have so enjoyed it. Like last night, and I was definitely not going to miss tonight. I was looking forward to it all week. So it's been a real pleasure and actually an honour as well. I felt that. I felt privileged. That's the word.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and your presence was really. I could see your eyes really clearly from where I was, and you were really feeding. It was good.
Giving you the energy.
Yeah.
Keep going, guys. Keep going.
I can see you quite so clearly.
No, I couldn't see with her.
But she was struggling with the accent a little bit.
I was so
That's what it
struggling with
was.
accent. That's what it's there recorded, maybe.
Because
If it's still recording,
That's
we'll
what she
talk about
mentioned.
it.
Yeah.
Because like this is such a like international different crowds like from so many different places, and so many of us are not English speakers originally. And my English is quite good, but still there's. And if a lot of it got lost in the story because of the accent.
Yeah.
So we were talking about how to make it that you do not lose your accent, because the accent is part of the show in a way.
It's a magic.
Which is taking us to another country. But how to make it that we don't lose the story? Because if I lose the story, I feel a little bit like left
Out.
on the road, and it's like little things like say like, okay guys, like because the stories are complicated, like she was saying, right? And it's like try to find these places where the stories get complicated or they change scene or something, and you can just add up something like, okay guys, do you remember that part when that thing happened and that?
You do that.
Exactly what I do in
You
schools.
do it.
Where
You
we
do
maybe we'll
it.
break our stop, okay, so we have this, then that happens, what happens
You-
next, we get the
yeah.
kids.
Yes,
It makes sense for an international audience.
So when it's international, Russians, and so many others.
You have to spell it out a bit more.
I consider my English is good. I was like, huh? Oh, I got lost. Where was this one? Was it in the first one or in the last one? It was just like,
Yeah, then it's hard to catch up.
so the children, what you do with the children, and then like saying it's like, oh, then it becomes even more engaging because then it's like you're not felt like, oh, they're just listening to the story. You feel like, oh, they really know me, and I really want to go with them. So if you do that in the children, then maybe in like this kind of
I'm Scottish,
also.
so I'm used to hearing the accent, so
Okay.
I can listen to it all day, you know. But you're from
I'm from Portugal.
Portugal, yeah. And the only time I notice it is sometimes with the accent when you go in quiet, sometimes the word is slightly lost, particularly at the end. Even with being Scottish, and you can catch it because I'm Scottish. So, but as you go and you come to the point, it's very quiet. If you are not,
It's
fluent,
gone.
you can miss the word.
Yeah. You miss it, and then you're like, and then you're like, you're here because you want to hear it.
So maybe but I love it.
It's all there. What we said. It's all there.
We totally